All right, hello everyone, and welcome. It is Monday, December 4th, and we have reached week 4 of game music composition. Right here before our winter break, a much deserved break coming at the end of the week and through the end of December. Um, so hopefully you are going to finish out strong with your compositions and the different projects that you've worked on this month. Here on Monday, you have just turned in your week 3 composition for Palace of Orinthalion, and we of course are going to start this Monday out like we've done all of our other Mondays and discuss our submissions for the palace composition. As you see here, we have everything set up a little bit differently this week because your music has 4 stems that are vertically stacked on top of each other. And so what you see are columns here. We've got 6 different submissions. You see the different student names across the top here. And we have earth, fire, water, and wind. The different cues that will play together. And then I will also play the part of the game as I mix up and down the different levels for the 4 different cues. We can see already visually that these are at least set up in the most basic way where they start at the same time and they end at the same time. So all of the 4 different cues are the same length so that they are meant to play and loop together. So we will take a listen to those. This is where we will start out today. After our peer review of the Palace of Orinthalion composition, we also have, not that. Oh, where am I going here? There we go. We also have week 4 assignments to discuss. Things take a bit of or slow down a bit here in week 4, mainly because we do not have a brand new game composition. Since we do not have a week 5 for peer review and revisions and feedback, we do not start up a brand new game here in week 4. Plus, you have just finished out basically the strongest week of the month in week 3. No, yeah, in week 3, we have the Palace of Orinthalion composition, which is certainly challenging. Plus, you have built a template using contact and logic to help you prepare for that composition. And you are also creating the sound effects to finish out Angry Bots. So certainly at a full pace through week 3, but in week 4, our focus is mainly on revisions and finalizing anything throughout each one of the weeks and each one of your projects. So you have an opportunity for revisions one more time here in week 4, plus a few more assignments that kind of focus on how do you take your projects and take the things that you've worked on and apply it beyond the month. So we will discuss what is in store here for week 4. But let's start out with our peer review. All right, let me just zoom in here a little bit on the first one. And I am going to bring up the mixer and make sure that we can still see all of these. So like I said, your music is vertically stacked on top of each other so that they have the ability to play at the same time. The challenge of our new game this week, Palace of Orinthalion, was that you had 4 different doorways that represented 4 different parts of the story. which also represented four different musical cues. And the player has the possibility of walking out of any one or two or three or all four of the doors and turning on a piece of the music or a stem or one of these files, turn it on and have it play and loop infinitely and be able to turn on the other pieces of music at the same time. And they will, no matter when they're turned on and off, they will play and come in at the correct point in the music. They loop together and they play seamlessly. They make sense melodically and harmonically. There is no dissonance between the different layers. And so the challenge here is to write four pieces of music that can play at the same time and don't create any sort of dissonance, either rhythmic dissonance or harmonic or melodic dissonance. And that was probably one of the main things that you might have run into while working on this composition, where each instrument line that you add has to work against the progression and the melodies that you have already created from the previous instruments. So you end up having many different tracks in your DAW session, many different instruments playing at the same time. Each cue needs to have enough instrumentation on its own. Suggested about 3 or 4 more layers playing together. And when you have all four of them playing, that means you have upwards of 12 or 16 or 20 or more tracks all playing at the same time. And this is where things can fall apart. And notes will clash and progressions and different melodic lines will not work together. So we talked about the way an approach of writing the music ahead of time. Hopefully you took the opportunity to start out with a piano patch, write your chord progression, and write a series of melodies, one representing each one of the musical cues. And then with those notes, you started figuring out what instrument lines make up the earth, the fire, the water, and the wind cue. And with all of the four music cues playing together, hopefully they all follow this common chord progression and they make sense when layered and playing at the same time. We want to make sure, again, that they're in the same key, that they're at the same tempo, the same time signature. They loop together. There's no pops or clicks or gaps or anything. A lot of times with this more orchestral instrumentation, looping can be a challenge because there might be a strong attack or sustain from a string instrument or from a wind instrument or brass or any of the instrument families that restarts every single time the loop starts over again. So we can pay attention to those characteristics of the music. Beyond just the formatting, there's just the function of the music, that everything plays together, that it makes sense, there's no dissonance, they're looping together. Then we start paying attention to the creative aspects of it, of the composition, your use of instrumentation between the different cues. We don't want any repeated instrument lines that will double up when played together. We want to make sure that the instrumentation of each cue matches the overall aesthetic. We talked about the four different themes of each one of the cues. And we want to make sure that there is change in development through the 16 bars of each cue and also from one cue to the next. So those are that will not only the function of the music, but how well does it fit its overall use in the game. Hold on just one moment. All right, those are the main things that we're listening for. I'm sure we will run into all sorts of other comments to pay attention to as we go, but let's dive into it with our first submission here. Let's see. We'll start with the Earth Cue. I will play one of them one at a time, go through each one of them, and then I'll go back through and layer them together. So bring all 4 of them up, see how we want to make sure that the mix, the levels of these 4 cues when each of the faders is at unity, doesn't completely overload the stereo output, doesn't overload the master and what would end up being the bounce. So we want to make sure that the relative levels in each one of these bounced files make sense when all the faders are at unity. And then, yeah, we'll listen to how well the different cues mix together. All right, let's start here. All right, so we have a couple of woodwind layers, the flute, and the counter melody line playing right along with it. Sounds like some stringed instrument, maybe a lute or a guitar. Also some percussion in there, tambourine. So the instrumentation works very well for the cue overall. There's change and development. All right, so everything works. Maybe watch out for the loop there. In the beginning, there looks like there's actually a little gap or a little piece of flute there that kind of messes with the overall rhythm. It seems to resolve like a half beat late. Bum, bum. So watch out for that. Otherwise, the Earth cue fits very well. I'm actually going to jump over to the wind cue. Wind represents a little bit of danger, spotting the enemy. Got some low strings. A couple of cymbal scrapes in there. There's the low percussion. This cue works well, creates a kind of a good texture for this particular cue. Let's check the loop here. That one works pretty well. The only thing I could really point out would be maybe something in a higher register to kind of balance the low end here. The cymbals, there's some cymbal washes and scrapes through there that helps, but maybe just some melodic instrument in a higher register, maybe some plucks from a harp or some other stringed instrument might work. Let's go into the fire cue. So for the instrumentation, we got the harp, we got the brass, some snares, percussion, crashes. The main thing, the fire cue is meant to represent the battle. This cue is very major, has a very major feel overall. That harp feels more like a victory theme, where I just won the battle. So maybe have this tinge a bit to a minor feel, present more action and struggle through the cue. Maybe change the harp for an ostinato string line that's kind of pulsing away. Yeah, just provide a little bit more action through the cue. again, that harp could probably work down in the wind cue. Right, flute and the harpsichord work well. A choir in the background. Instrumentation here works nicely, looped well. Just checking the flute of the earth cue versus this one, but it shouldn't probably step on each other. All right, let's bring all of the levels in together. So I would say the earth and the fire and the water work very well together. There's the pad kind of drones and creates some dissonance very subtly with the wind cue. And I think it's more of that major versus minor aspect overall. You might center around a minor feel and can still get majestic and strong. Or heroic kind of theme over in the earth cue. Could just be the registers of each one of the instruments. I don't know. The choir doesn't really kind of from the water cue doesn't really muddy up the bottom end, kind of like the wind does. Overall, the instrumentation works out very well. Progressions work nicely. The layers work well together. Everything has its kind of place through the mix. So, nice work overall. Got some good elements to work with there. Let's try the next one. Start with the earth cue. Really nice melody and harmony that work together, like the pluck in the background. Little arpeggios. Maybe add a little bit of percussion. Just some. You got the chimes in there, but a little bit of handheld percussion. Maybe a shaker or tambourine, along with a conga or some hand drum could work well. Let's do wind. So we got some good brass layers along with the choir. Fills in the low end nicely. Just a few dissonant notes that seem to cause a bit of issue. That chord works. There's a little tense note in there. And the last chord is... maybe find another way to voice that last chord. But that works. Let's bring in the fire cue. might go for another more powerful instrument for the lead through this fire cue other than the flute. You have another woodwind line there in the earth cue. So those kind of get mixed together. Maybe some brass. Maybe move that woodwind line to a trumpet and have a couple of brass layers to support it. Bringing the wind cue. Otherwise, the power of this one. There's a lot of low end that does kind of get mixed in with this water cue. So watch out, you might have to cut out different areas in the EQ to make room for the different instruments. Again, another woodwind as a lead. I think if you had water and earth, that works better, but definitely move it away in the fire cue. Maybe have another harmonic layer that has a bit more movement than the pads that you have through the water cue. One of the reasons I like the element of the earth cue that has the pluck and has a little bit of an attack to it. Everything feels kind of very with slow attacks and feels very amorphous kind of through. The water cue could have something with a bit of a sharper attack. Let's see how these work together. Yeah, the fire cue does cut through because you have elements with the percussion that does have a bit of a faster transient to it to help it fit through the mix or kind of poke through the mix. The water and the wind cue, these kind of get jumbled together, and the low end of the fire and the wind cue kind of get play against each other. So having elements with more attack to or faster transient to kind of cut through the mix might help overall. But you definitely have some good progressions to work with. The layers seem to work well together. Just maybe finding a couple of different voices in the chord progression between the different layers that might work a little bit better, and using stronger instrumentation that cuts through its place in the mix. All right, the next one, we'll start with the earth cue. So we got some percussion. We got a nice progression. And we got two leads, or a lead and a counter melody. The loops seem to work well. So we've got a woodwind and like a string playing against each other. And it would work really well as kind of a call response. Have the flute just state a phrase, and then have the string kind of, or fiddle kind of answer it back. You've got the nice harmonic progression set by the guitar. So overall, progression and instrumentation works well. Maybe the drums are a little loopy in their progression, so maybe have just a little bit of variation, more velocity difference through the pattern. Wind cue. I'm a bit concerned about how water and the wind cue will play against the fire and the earth. Even these are not really all that strong overall, so they may actually be heard, but the wind feels really kind of sparse and subtle. I don't know if it's the intensity of the instrumentation or just quite light overall. Watch that loop. The instrumentation kind of shuts off. So also the instrumentation kind of sits in the mids, high mids, have more layers in the lower registers, low brass, French horns, trombones would work, low cellos, basses could add a layer, and then these woodwinds work well to balance that out as a higher layer, whereas a melody kind of creating the progression through the cue. Fire cue. All right, so great, let's see. I was gonna say great progression overall. There's some solid power here, but it does feel reserved overall for what the strings and the brass might be capable of. I don't know if it's just the level, the level of the bounce. But the brass, well, the strings sound pretty solid, but the brass sounds quite a bit reserved, like it was a lower velocity, not bright enough. So the mix the drums and the strings together and get a decent group mix of those elements, and then balance the brass against that and make sure the lead line is quite strong throughout the cue, because what you have here is quite good. The snare and the staccato strings, da 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 da. That kind of feel to it works well, and the brass can just sit right on top and sing the really strong lead melody. Water cue. Wow, after all that power, yeah, it feels quite sparse through here. Probably you got the plucks of the harp, the bells or chimes, the flute, I guess, has some sustain, but most of them have really sharp attacks and presents little gaps through this cue. So a little bit more strength from the instrumentation. Maybe it's just more volume overall. The flute works. Maybe have a string or choir presenting the chords and the progression. The bells kind of work. They do feel a little out of tune. It's just the harmonics of the bells overall. So those might be mixed back a little bit more. Let's bring all these together. I don't hear much from the winds cue. I hear the bells through the water cue. I definitely hear the fire cue and the earth cue a bit more. The percussion of the earth seems to clash a little bit with the fire cue. So you got some good elements there. Again, watch the muddiness and the low mids between all of the different cues, and watch out for making the mix kind of poke through with the different instrument layers. You think you can do that with the strings. The bells do pretty well. Maybe you can find another instrument, maybe glockenspiel, that can work for that. Right. Next. All right, we'll try the next earth cue. Alright, so we got the strings, we got a little bit of percussion in there, we got the flute line as the lead. Nice little groove to it overall. And we got a change in the second half. There's just one note in there that feels a little too dissonant in the transition to the minor feel in the second half. That looks pretty well. Okay, so we got staccato strings, more winds. Nice progression in melodic line here. Let's bring the fire cue. I would say that the brass through this suffers in the same way that the previous fire cue did, where the brass sounds a bit reserved, a bit lower in velocity overall. It's almost like the groove of the drums kind of is more present or more noticeable than what the brass is doing. That groove of bum 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 bum. It kind of holds that groove overall, and it doesn't sound very intimidating. It sounds kind of groovy and nice and laid back. It does, again, it kind of has a more major feel to it. So you could work the groove a little bit differently through this fire cue to present more action overall. Let's bring in the water cue. Okay. We got the pluck here, we got a flute. compare that against the earth. Yeah, with the woodwinds and the multiple cues, those are going to work against each other, and will probably cause clutter in the same frequency ranges. So you might find different instrumentation to work with through the water cue, maybe a lead string line, maybe with the, let's see, flutes and oboes, student oboes over there. Yeah, those just kind of meld too closely together. So choose either the earth cue or the water cue and find another lead instrument. Let's bring them in together. Yeah, the groove that's established works well with all four of them. They all kind of follow it, that dun 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 kind of feel all the way through. There's some good things that the brass is doing. Feels more over on the right channel. That could be brought out to provide a little bit more of the attack and to work against that groove and provide some variation. So instrumentation works, maybe just a little bit of shuffling around between the different cues and working on the kind of the tonality of the fire cue, the intensity of it, and reworking the lead instrument between the earth and the water. All right. Next. Earth. So we got a staccato string line, flute, and percussion. Alright, so with the staccato string, it does kind of get sparse in times when the flute is not playing and the string is not playing. You have the percussion in there. Again, the percussion feels a little bit loopy overall. Could probably have a couple of other layers in there. Like even the strings sound kind of a bit too large. You should work against just a kind of a smaller fiddle sound overall. Maybe a plucked string in there could add, like a lute or guitar could add a harmony layer. The string and the flute playing against each other work well. You just kind of have to fill in some layers around that. Wind cue. The choir and the strings and the harp, harp work well together here. The chords of the choir and string pads kind of move too closely to each other. They just move together at the same time, following the same chord changes. Separating those out into different voices that have their own separate movement. Feels like the chords just kind of moving around. I can almost like hear you playing it on the keyboard versus having it voiced out for a choir or a string ensemble. But the progression against the harp line works well. Let's bring in the fire cue. I would say this is similar to the earth cue in that it has a couple too many gaps, feels sparse in places, that strong staccato horn and then the brass stabs. Just fill in some gaps in between, maybe again an ostinato string line, creating an arpeggio, building and following the chord progression could help here. And maybe work with a different combination of articulations for that lead brass, with some sustain and some staccato, mixing back and forth, so it's not just pop, bop, bop, bop. Really short kind of staccato lines, have some sustain in there. Could definitely do ba, 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 da, like, and just mixing it up between staccato and sustain. These look the same, or sound the same. Yeah, those two cues are the same, so you want to bounce a different version for... Actually, I think this is this music is more appropriate for water overall. Feels more like an emotional line. You could go for a little bit more suspense through the wind cue. Oh, let's bring them all in. Well, let's bring three of them in together. Now, with the water cue in there, as the more of the sustained layer works better against the fire and water cue with those faster or sharper attacks from the strings and the brass. So when in other cues, when other submissions and some of the previous things that we listened to, I mentioned having stronger attacks to have things cut through, and so it works well here to have those layers. The only issue is that in water cue you don't have anything with a stronger attack, and in the fire and earth it's mostly the attack with a little sustain, so it works together when you mix them, but separately doesn't work as well. So watch out for that. It works as they mix together. You might kind of add an instrument in each one of the cues that has a sharper attack to kind of hold on to. Progression works well across all of them. Everything fits well nicely. Chord changes and changes in the first half and the second half work across all of the cues. Oops, don't want to do that. All right. So some good ideas through there. We got one more. Let me go ahead and bring these files in. No, there we go. There we are. All right, so here, the first thing that I see is the gaps at the beginning and end. It looks like each one of these fades in and out. So we want to make sure that they're is more instrumentation to help the seamless loop of each one of the cues. So let's start with the earth cue. Sorry about that. Don't mean to punch the microphone. Let's start with the earth cue here. All right, so the production here is too modern for this type of game. You want to keep it strictly orchestral and acoustic instrumentation to fit the overall theme of the game. Let's see how the rest of these work. Yeah, so all of the pads should be replaced with acoustic instruments. Watch out for the delays. It ends up sounding like electronic production. Probably works well when you add all the layers together. So the fire cue needs strong drums, strong percussion that will help create the power and intensity necessary for the cues. It does sound like, like the water cue does have a little bit of a kind of a pluck to it. Yeah, watch out for the use of arpeggiators. So you want to choose orchestral instrumentation that's going to fit the theme of each one of the cues. Watch the loop. Watch where it fades in, swells in, and comes out with each one of those. All right. So we saw a couple different approaches and submissions. Hopefully you seeing how I set everything up and how they're formatted and how we listen back to them, and checking out some other people's submissions gives you insight into how you might approach your own project for revisions this week. So we want to make sure that you get a feel for how each one of these projects are supposed to be set up and how they are or the best approach to building the music. And this last week, our main focus is towards how do you take the projects that you've worked on, the knowledge that you've gained, and hopefully an interest in this type of work in this part of the industry, and how do you take that and apply it beyond the class. Some of the discussions that we'll get into on Thursday are how do you find jobs and how do you get started in the industry overall. I said Thursday, I meant Wednesday. Let's see. Anything else for our week 3 composition? We saw how the music loops and plays back together. We heard a couple of places where the layers of the music could be clarified and to watch out for any sort of dissonant chords or intervals between the different cues. Let's see. I think that about wraps up our week 3 submission. I'll have everything graded to you later on this week. And the other thing is revisions. I still have revisions to take care of throughout the month. So watch as through the end of this week and certainly the beginning of next week, I'll have everything graded and back to you. You have one more opportunity for your week 3 revisions coming up this week, and that should get us into our week 4 assignments, which is where we want to wrap up. If you have any questions about any of the assignments this month, your week 3 assignments, the new assignments for week 4, please get in contact with me throughout this week. Week 4 is certainly the week where we want to wrap up and finish everything out and make sure everything gets answered and you get everything finished with all of the submissions, so that we can both head into a nice holiday with everything finished out and wrapped up. So take the chance to go over all of the grades if there's anything outstanding that I need on my end that you haven't seen. And like I said, I'm working on revisions. Those are happening, and I'll be getting through week 3 assignments through this week. And yeah, let's talk about what is happening for week 4. As I mentioned, our focus of our assignments are how do you take what you've worked on through the month and use it to apply it beyond the month. And to finish out one of your games, we need to create all of the sound effects for Angry Bots. By the end of this month, you will have 3 completely working games with music and sound effects. You've already done a round of sound effects for 2D platformer, and the general approach is very similar for Angry Bots this week. So let me do this. Let me close out of this session. And we're going to create a brand new session. Now, for this assignment, I would definitely suggest that you start out with a brand new session and import the original sound effects for the game to use as a reference. And hopefully you did that last round when working on 2D platformer, and it would be a good approach again to start with. So this game has got all sorts of fun sound effects to work with. It's robots and explosions and kind of a futuristic setting. So there's a good amount of sound effects to work with. So let me do a few things here. Let me get a little bit of desktop and drop Angry Birds. I say that often. Angry Bots. And we're going to also need the documentation. So when you download this assignment in week 4, you will get the PDF. That looks like this. And quite similar to the sound effects or sound design for 2D platformer. You can use Westar Music and freesound.org, again, as sources, and screenshots for each one of the sounds that kind of gives you a reference as to what we're referring to. But again, down here towards the bottom, something we'll start with is the asset list. These are all the sound effects that you will be making with the names of the files and the sample rate and bit depth and number of channels. 16-bit 44:1 stereo files, as we've done throughout the month. And as you look over the list of sounds, I would suggest that you find groups of sounds to work with and go out and find a large chunk of sounds to edit and layer and to work together. And you can probably find multiple different variations of things to work from as you are searching around. So in this game, there are a lot of explosions and there are a lot of doors. Where did I go? Oh, what happened to QuickTime? Hey, there we go. Let's do this. Hold on just a sec. All right, so lots of explosions and lots of doors. So I would again suggest that you get the original sounds and put them in a logic session. So as I did earlier, here's a copy of Angry Bots. Oops, I don't want to actually run it. I'm going to right click on it and do show package contents. Maybe you are getting quite familiar with this by now as you are using the WAV files and placing your own WAV files. We go into contents, we go into data, we go into streaming assets, and you have already placed your music in there. Here are the original sound effects, and these are the sound effects that you will be creating. So I'm going to take all of these files right here, and I'm just going to dump them in on a track in Logic. And I want to place all the files on one track, import them in, and maybe I'll title this Angry Bots Sound Effects. And like you might hopefully did previously, you probably want to separate these out so that they are a little bit easier to work with, give you a little room to work, and then create a series of empty audio tracks below there to build all of your sound design. You will use these as reference to know how long the files are, what the shape of the waveform generally looks like, the naming of the files, how loud they are, as many of the properties of the sounds that you can actually glean from just listening and looking at the waveforms. Then you will go search out groups of sound effects. Go find a whole bunch of explosions. Go find a whole bunch of the doors. Everything is like a future Star Trek door in this game that opens automatically for you. So some good terms to search are hydraulics and pneumatics and air brakes and things like that, where they are using air and water to actually drive the system overall. And find groups of sounds to work with, and then import those sounds in on your blank tracks here and start building all of your audio. So let's take a listen. Let's take a listen here to all of the sound effects. Hopefully this won't be too very loud. Let's see. All right. Here is... All right, there's a lot of doors in this game. So airlock door, open and close. There is interior door, open and close. There's locked door. So here's what an airlock door sounds like. And that is close. Here's open. Sometimes you can get away with using reverse or elements and reversing them to create the same open and close sound. Ambience, exterior rain, and interior hum. This is a pretty long loop overall. Rain loop, hum loop. Those are your basic ambiences in the game. Then you have sound effects for the different robots. You have flying buzzer, patrol mech, and spider. So lots of explosions. Destroyed explosion. Each one of them has their own destroyed explosion. Here's patrol mech. Hopefully I did not blow up your speakers doing that. What else? We got destroyed explosion, the spider destroyed explosion. It self-destructs also. If it gets close enough to you, it has another explosion. I don't think that's a very amazing explosion at all. There's the missile explosions when they shoot at you, and the missiles, I think, if either they hit you or they miss, they explode. All right, so a lot of explosions. You can go out and search just for a little bit, just finding those. So flying buzzer, the other sound it makes is when it zaps you with its attack. Pretty sci-fi blaster sound. A lot of, well, the mech and the spider have an alert sound when they kind of wake up and they spot you. Really quick kind of sound there. The spider alert sounds like this. Right, just some sort of techie kind of sound. Patrol mech footsteps. Left foot, right foot. 1 foot, 2 foot. I don't like the fact that they're the same here. You should probably make your footsteps slightly different so they can tell what left, right, left, right. Missile explosion when they shoot at you with the missiles. That's the mech shooting its missiles. Spider alert, spider destroyed, spider proximity. This is when the spider bots get closer and closer to you. Their attack, they don't shoot at you or anything like that. They just try to get close enough to you, and then they explode. While they are getting close to you, they play a beep that goes faster and faster and faster. So as they approach, it goes beep, 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 beep. The speed of the beep is all triggered from code. So it knows how close you are, and the closer it gets, the faster it beeps. All you need to create, and all you should create with this sound, is one beep. One really, really short kind of sound. Or else it's just going to get layered up and it's going to sound horrible. Interior door. Did we do this? Let's close. Let's open. Locked door opening. It's the door. You have to hack the terminals. You stand next to the computers and they hack and they sound like this. And then the door opens, or when you go find the door and you stand next to the door and it opens up. Player hit when you get shot. And when you shoot. All right, that is the gun sound. It is a loop. Let me go over here to the actual sound. Where's my gunshots? Okay, shot. Player shot. Shooting. This is the sound of the weapon. You need to create a loop. You should also probably put the same number of shots in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 gunshots through here for the loop. It's probably the best way of going about it because I think that it's timed to the animation of the muzzle flash. When you are shooting, you'll see at the end of the gun there's a muzzle flash animation. And I would bet that it's very heavily timed. It's kind of hard because it kind of shoots quite fast on the timing of it. But it's something to pay attention and to watch out for. And then also make a loop. And then as the player holds down the button, it turns on and off that sound. And each time you push it down, it starts the loop. And when you let go, it turns it off. So those are all of the sounds. Use the original sounds as reference. Bring them into Logic. Do not bounce them into the final versions. Make sure that they don't end up in your sound effects. Always mute this track, but build your own layers directly below it to create all the sound effects. All right, so maybe take a night and just go search out a whole bunch of fun, interesting sound effects, and then another night to go through and edit and make sure that they all work together. All right. Then, oops, where did I go? About that. So, creating sound effects, total of 22 sound effects for this game. There are lots of fun, interesting sounds. And if you tackle them as groups, you're probably going to get through it a whole lot smoothly, more smoothly. So your final delivery, the last assignment for the month is a discussion post where everybody is posting up their final videos. So you've done this throughout the month, creating a game capture that you then submit to the game composition, or you post it up in peer review so we can take a look at it. But you want to have a final version or a final video of all of these games to add to a portfolio or a demo reel. One of the big purposes through this month is to introduce you to this side of the industry, making music and audio for video games, to show you that your music is just as viable in a video game as it is in any other media or format, and to give you these types of projects to introduce you to this work and give you a sense of whether or not you enjoy this and something you want to pursue further. But by the end of it, everybody has 3 fully working Mac games with your music and sound effects in them, with revised versions and updated music and sound effects. And each week you have delivered a music only version or game capture of your game, and you've submitted it to me. But they haven't been spread or shared out to the whole group, and we want to make a final version of all this. So you will be using the same process to create a game capture that you have done throughout the month, using QuickTime and Loopback to be able to capture the video and audio. If you are having any sort of issues through the month of doing these captures, please get in contact with me and we can troubleshoot through any issue. And having a video game capture is a very useful tool to have to add to a portfolio or demo reel. As you progress through these last series of classes through the degree program, one major thing that you're doing is composing music a lot of times for different media, and you are gathering videos and music and game footage, and you should be adding this to your custom portfolio or demo reel, posting it up on websites, sharing it around to future clients or employers or whomever you would like. So you have, like I said, 3 fully working Mac games. Those games are for you to use, and if you want to later on, you can change and distribute them, show them off to clients, to employers, and they are yours for education and non-commercial purposes to use and demo your work. As a Mac application, they are a bit limited overall. You can post up a link to download the application to have people play and check out, but there are a couple of roadblocks in the way of somebody being able to successfully play and check out your music in the game. Having your music work in a game is the best way of showing off game music. Posting up your loops to SoundCloud or on your website will show off aspects of the music, but you won't be able to fully appreciate the interactive nature of the music unless it's played in the game. So having a game to show off is useful, but there can be challenges in the way. Namely, number one, they have to have a Mac in order to play a Mac game. These are Mac-only applications. The Unity game system, which is how all of our games are developed, that is both Mac and PC compatible. So it is possible that you could make a PC version of all of these games, but that takes a little bit of technical know-how overall, and the default version you have that you've created is a Mac version. So number one, they have to have a Mac to play the game. Number two, they have to have a computer that's powerful enough to play the games. Now, this probably won't be much of an issue. The games are not really all that taxing, but every once in a while we'll run into issues of just the game technically not working. Then there is the reality that Apple really likes to update and change their software and their computers and their hardware pretty regularly. So there really is no guarantee that a year or 5 years or 10 years from now that this particular piece of software will work with the computer that you have and the operating system that you're running and many other technical hurdles. So that can be a challenge also. But those are not necessarily not a reality currently, and more than likely you're sending the game to somebody who's probably in the games industry, is technically minded, and so they would know that they have a Mac and that it would work. And so there, maybe those aren't really horrible roadblocks overall, but they can present a challenge. Then there, beyond the technical, oh, well, there's another really important reason is that a lot of smart people don't necessarily really want to just download random applications and play them on their computer. Sending somebody a zip file or a download, having them click and download an application and running it on their computer, you would be maybe smart not to do that a whole bunch of times with software you're not too familiar with. So maybe that could be a reason that it might be an issue. So you want to be able to show off your game and your music in the best way possible. You want to make sure that the game works every single time and it demonstrates your music in the best way. So a video capture will do this very easily. You can capture the video on your computer just like you've done throughout the month. You have the final version of your music and your sound effects, and you are capturing a video that hopefully can go on your demo reel or be added to your portfolio. You can put that on YouTube, you can put it on your website, you can share that around. People really have really no issue with clicking on a YouTube link and watching a video. They trust it, they know it's going to work and not really cause any issues. And you can play through the game and show them exactly what you want to demonstrate. They may play through the game on their end and miss parts or get frustrated by the game, and your music is in a negative light because they don't like the game for some reason. Or so it's this perfect demo that you can set up. And a video is probably going to still work on the internet a year or 5 or 10 years from now. Lots of good reasons to have a video capture in addition to actually having the game. Then you can post it on your website, post up a video and say, this is my awesome game and here's my amazing music. Maybe even add a little behind the scenes. Employers really like that. Clients like to see what you've done in the background. You didn't just compose music, you actually set it up and formatted it in a particular way that is interactive and is going to work in these games. And so don't just show the game play, but maybe show a little bit behind the scenes in your Logic session or how you set up or compose the music. And you're going to create a video that's, 3 different videos, an individual one for each game. It's going to have your final revised music and sound effects in it. The demos should really be a minute or 2 minutes long. Not much longer than that will hold many people's attention in an online video. Get in there, show exactly what you want to show off in the best light as possible. And then you will take those videos and post them up online and host them on YouTube and share them in the discussion post. And then we'll get to see everybody's final versions. You get to check them out and see what everybody else has been working on and their final result with these games. And then hopefully, again, you'll be able to use those video captures, add them to your own personal portfolio, and then share them with the industry and folks as a whole. So as you progress through the end of the program, having your resume in order, having an online website and demo reel and portfolio website to share, having stuff to show off in the projects that you've worked on, all of that stuff is very beneficial to have early on and even before you graduate out of here. If you graduate in day one after graduation, you say, okay, I'm going to sit down and write my resume and write my portfolio or put up a website, you're probably already behind the game. You should be hitting the ground running with all of that stuff prepared and ready to go. So gathering these sorts of materials and having access to them is certainly important all the way through the process. So that is our last week, week 4. We have the sound design and the final game captures to post up. You also have the week 3 revisions. I'll be grading those and getting those back to you along with week 1 and 2 revisions. Then that will wrap everything up nice with a nice holiday bow, and we can head into our winter break here to hopefully celebrate nicely with friends and family, and with thoughts of Full Sail maybe being in the background, so that we get a nice 2-week break and come back strong beginning next year. All right, so again, please contact me if you have any questions about assignments or submissions or anything. The week 4, now's the time to get all of that stuff figured out, so we don't have to do that over the break. And yeah, we'll wrap up the month nicely. We have one more class on Wednesday, where we will talk about more along the same lines. How do we get started in the industry? How do we take what we've learned and apply it beyond the class? So, yep, let me hear from you in the last week, and we'll see you again on Wednesday. Have a good afternoon, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.